This episode, the last of the four last things, hell and all the trimmings. The Catholic Underground starts right now. Yes, you have hit the play button on the Catholic Underground, the podcast cutting through the noise and bringing you the topics that matter. It's episode number 460. For those of you who are rocking along with us, I'm Father Chris Decker, a priest of the Diocese of Baton Rouge in Louisiana in these United States of America. Joining me this week, Kathleen Higgins. Hey, Kathleen.
Sounds so distinguished.
Doesn't it? You should have like an honourary doctorate somewhere.
Oh, yes.
I'll read from her new book.
I'll pick my university.
That's right. Well, we'll get right on top of that. The one who pretty much does have an honorary doctorate here at Catholic Underground, Olivia Gulino. Because we can just give them out, you know?
I mean, I'll expect a certificate by the end of the show. Thank you.
Done and done. Going up to space in the Jeff Star 1 near Earth orbit satellite, Dr. Jeff Blackwell. Doctors all around.
It's an honor.
It's an honor to be nominated.
I don't even know what to say. Wow.
That's right. Dr. Ed Ball is
Dr.
in
Ball.
the video cave, who's running the video for us. So Jeff's on audio, Ed's on video.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes
the gang's all here.
And the gang is all here. We're all here.
True that.
So we've been making our way through the four last things. And so just to kind of catch everybody up, so death is the first of the four last things.
Light note.
Welcome.
That's right. And talking about that, because, you know, in our culture, we really are obsessed with death because it's the one window that we haven't been able to see from the other side of, you know? And so it's something that philosophically, especially the more and more our society moves away from belief in God or any sort of belief system at all except for the self, oddly enough, death becomes even more interesting because we don't have a way to explain it, you know. And so we've been talking about death. So you'll have to go back a few episodes to listen in about that. And then, of course, after death, judgment.
Yep.
And judgment, as we know, is immediate after death, and it also bespeaks and waits for the general judgment. So we have our particular judgment, and then, of course, at the end of everything, when all is consummated, the universal judgment. But really, with the four last things for us, we're concerned with our death, our judgment before the Lord, and then heaven, which we talked about last episode. And we also talked about purgatory as well. And purgatory, of course, is the state that souls who do not die in the state of mortal sin, but are on the way to heaven and still must be purged of any of the temporal effects due to sin, any of the things that are not quite refined, right? That need to be purified, and in the same way that one would purify gold in order to be able to be in the presence of God. And then today on this episode, we're talking about the fourth of the last things, which is hell.
Hell.
That's right, and it's interesting as clever the notion of death in our society is, and as people are very concerned about it and don't like to say that they are, we also are concerned with hell because a great deal of our popular culture deals with, I think, it more than heaven.
Yeah.
There's always kind of a fixation with it. Would you agree?
I think so. And also, like, we sometimes on kind of, I guess maybe the flip side of that is sometimes we can be erroneously sure that people are going there.
Yeah.
You're talking about kind of the judgmentalism.
You're going to hell for that. It's like, okay.
And that's the thing. Of course, we recognize that it's not our job to dispense who's going to heaven and who's going to hell. You know, that would be divine judgment, and none of us being divine, we can't really make that call.
Yeah.
One of the things that we can do, and we're called to do, because, you know, there's always this notion, well, who am I to judge?
Yeah, sure.
But whenever we see something that is definitively, objectively wrong, right? Whenever we see a murder, or whenever we see, evidence of somebody who's actually doing something that is very contrary to the Ten Commandments, contrary to the natural law, then we can't say they're going to hell, but we can say their soul is in danger.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and we do have to do that.
And that's a discussion, man, I have that discussion all the time, you know, with people in general, is that very thing. Like, I can say, that's going to put you in some serious danger. And that action is not good. But to make that distinction is
well, and if you think about it, on the other side, we also kind of canonize folks too, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Whenever we see something good happening,
right, sure.
and we see a person who is actually acting in we could even say like a superhuman, virtuous way, we go, man, they are a living saint.
Yeah,
they really are. I don't even think I could hold a candle to them because they are doing this so selflessly.
Yeah.
And so we actually are kind of passing judgment in the other way too.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, that's also not for us to do.
Yeah.
The only time that we can canonize somebody is after that lengthy process of canonization where the church says, yep, miracles have been attributed to their intercession. They lived a life worthy of emulation, and so we can say they are in the presence of God in heaven.
Yeah.
They're put on the canon of saints.
They're put on the canon of saints. That's right. And the only thing that we can say about folks, and of course we know them all throughout history, is we can't say they're in hell, but we can be fairly certain that their souls were in danger at the time of their death. We don't know a whole lot at the time of a person's death. Maybe a priest kind of happens by. Maybe they're able to reconcile. We don't know.
Right.
But that said, hell is in fact a real state of being. Contrary to what we try to think about, we can condemn people all the time to hell, don't we? Like, oh well, they're probably just going to hell.
Yeah.
But by and large, our society doesn't believe in it, even though that it's fixated on it.
And it's a state of being that we choose. Like, I think that's also something that I don't mean, I'm sure Kathleen you and Father, like y'all both get questions about this all the time. Like, well, why would God send people to hell?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, he doesn't, like hell is a reality that exists because we have the freedom. We're made to choose the good. Like our freedom is meant to choose good, but we also, because of sin, are more inclined to choose what is not good.
Yeah.
And hell is like the final definitive door closing on that I've said no to God,
Yeah.
And so God respects our freedom, even including the fact that like we might not get to spend eternity with him.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's a quote that I love from C.S. Lewis that I use when I teach my seniors about heaven, hell, and judgment and all that. And it's that the love of God lights up the fires of hell. I think I've mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
And that's because it's not that, God is purposely like igniting flames and he's just like, ha ha ha. Like, no, God doesn't rejoice in losing anyone, right?
No.
God wants every single
He wills
soul.
not the death of a sinner.
Exactly,
as a matter of
yeah.
fact.
He wants every single soul to be with him. But it's the reality that we are so far from the love of God that burns.
Yeah, and I often think about the way that this came about. Of course, we know from the very beginning, it was the fallen angels. It was Satan, the Lucifer and his angels that said, "I will not serve you, Lord, and I will not serve humanity. I'm not going to serve the crown of your creation." And so a state of being must then therefore exist for those who choose to be in direct opposition to God.
Yeah.
And if you think about how the Lord allows us to choose what is good, is he makes it very clear in the garden that we are to eat of any fruit, but not the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, because the Lord does not want us to have to experience evil.
Yeah.
And so he places it right there in front of them, not to see if not as a test in that sense, but to just simply say, like, here is the mark. Here is the marker. You have free will, but if you want to know evil, then this is the way to do it. This is what will happen. And so in choosing a will apart from God, humanity begins to emulate the fallen angel by saying, I will to be apart from God. And so if we think about how the hell is prepared for the devil and all his angels, as Jesus says in the scriptures, well, then it is a state of being that we as the crowns of God's creation, as human beings who are free agents, who can act freely, it is a state of being that we also can choose, and so I often think about that people ask me, well, why would God put that stuff in the garden? Why would he just not conceal the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?
Yeah.
Well, because a God who loves also makes it clear what the responsibility of that love entails.
Yeah.
And I mean, just on that note, since this is one thing that I love to read about, like different theologians and church fathers have looked at that particular part of Genesis and said, like, if God were to put in the middle of the garden like the most luscious, beautiful looking fruit and never intend to give it to them, he's a monster, right? And I think some people are kind of maybe like implicitly okay with that, like content with like, yeah, like God's just got like a mean streak in him. That's why he sends people to hell, you know? But no, like the reality is like that you're saying he's reminding them of the responsibility that like trying to be like God entails. And so their sin was trying to be like God without God, right?
Yeah.
Which is impossible.
Yeah, which is literally impossible. And that's why the devil tells those lies, like, well, God doesn't really want you to be like him. You should just eat the fruit. But all that is to say, like, God always intended to give them that fruit, right? Just like God always intends to give us eternal life. And so even in the garden, this is one thing I love too about the creation stories, because there are two. But at the end of the second creation story, when they're being cast out of the garden, the reason is because if they touched the tree of life in their state of mortal sin, separation from God, then that's it. That's it for humanity. That's it for them.
Right.
And they can never go back.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All they will know is a state of death. And so God, because he loves them and he has a plan for redemption, he literally says it like step one after the fall. He's like, Genesis 3:15, right? I will send a savior. That's not what he says, but anyway.
I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers.
Yeah.
You will strike at her heel and she will crush your head.
Yeah. And so God wants togetherness. He wants unity of all of humanity and creation with him. And so in order to preserve that, he casts them out, right? And he puts angels with like flaming swords to guard the way back to the tree of life.
It was punitive in the sense that you don't want your kid to go into danger again. And so you make some sort of a penalty for what they have done. And for us, that was the penalty, to be cast out of the garden, but not without God's intention to one day restore us to that as well. And so all this to say, hell is a place that is apart from God. It is a state of being that souls can go. So we believe at death, the body and the soul are separated, of the individual are separated. At Christ's return, before the universal judgment, the souls of the dead will be reunited with the bodies they had in their life on earth, although there will be glorified bodies for those who enter eternal beatitude. But those who are damned, right? Who desire to be apart from God for eternity, they will endure their share of the torments of hell with their condemned bodies. It's kind of like the inverse of a glorified body. It's a glorified body, but opposite.
Yeah. I've never really thought about that because we spend a lot of time talking about that idea of a glorified body.
Yeah, we believe in the resurrection of the body, and normally we think about that in the terms of beatitude.
Yeah. I've never thought about that.
And so if you can imagine having essentially an immortal, glorified body, but completely devoid of any of the joys of heaven.
Yeah.
For eternity. That's as Casey Kasem might say, serious stuff. And that's why Dante, whenever he enters into, and of course we should say that Dante is not a saint of the church, but he is definitely a very introspective poet of the church, trying to kind of give voice to some of these states of being with this deep philosophy and very good theology. And when he gets to the gates of hell, Beatrice shows him the moniker above hell, and it says,
abandon all hope, all you who enter here. Yeah, and it was Virgil.
It was Virgil. It wasn't. Beatrice was
heaven,
taking him to heaven. It was Virgil that took him through hell.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been a while.
But sorry, it's the teacher in me. I can't help myself.
It's okay. No, I'm glad to be corrected. Believe me.
But yeah, like, and I read, again, like, to talk about how I teach this to my students, like, when we're talking about hell, like, I read them part of Dante, because it's a class on theology through art, and literature is part of art.
Yeah.
And the way that he describes that, it's like, it's not just the sign, right, but it's like immediately like the river Styx. And the sound that he describes it's like muffled screams, right? And like it's kind of described as like the death of hopes and dreams, right? Because like this is literally where like hope comes to die, because after this point there is no hope, right? And Dante knows that because he is, you know, a good Catholic, and if you want to find out who Dante thinks goes to hell, it's lots of bishops.
Yes, many priests.
But he recognizes that this is a final state of being. Like there is no going back from this. And I think sometimes that's hard for people to reconcile with. Like I get questions a lot about like, well, like, is there even about like demons? Like I've had people ask me like, well, can demons be like rehabilitated? Like, can demons kind of go back? Can people in hell like
this
be reconciled
is not a
with
WB
God?
series.
Yeah, and the answer is no. You know, like I think we're uncomfortable with the fact that sometimes, and in this instance, our choices are permanent. You know.
Well, we don't like consequences today, right? That's one of the biggest problems I think in our society that we see is that people. I mean, myself included, like we honestly think sometimes whenever we do the wrong thing that there will be no consequence. You know, and I think that is one of the issues that again we're kind of fixated on because we know that there's something there. We know that there must be a consequence that ultimately is eternal because we know we are finite. One day we will die. And so either, as I tell my parishioners, either everything that Jesus has told us is true or none of it is. It's all true or it's all a lie. And if it's all true, then that means that there are eternal consequences on the other side of our timeline. If we believe eternity is on the other side of it, then those choices are eternal. In the case of the fallen angels as well as the angels, the choice they made is binary, yes or no. And it is everlasting. They got kind of one shot at making the choice because they exist outside of time. And we, throughout our lives, I mean, we talk about the patience of God. We have the ability to choose what is good and to do the right because we ought to do it because we love God. And we, I mean, all of us over the course of the timeline, we don't know how many days, weeks, or months we have, but we are able to actually choose wrongly, be reconciled to God, and choose rightly. And sometimes we do. We make that serpentine throughout our lives of rising and falling. But the idea is that, you know, we would hope that we would go through the Paschal mystery of dying and rising and not just simply boomeranging in and out of mortal sin. You know, a lot of times that's what's kind of known as the purgative way in the spiritual life, where we don't seek to be illuminated by the light of the gospel and we don't seek union with Christ, but we just kind of yo-yo in and out of mortal sin, which is a true spiritual place. And most people, a lot of the saints would say, just kind of live their life in this purgative way, in and out of the confessional, so to speak. Hey, that's not a bad place to be because it means that you're taking charge of your soul, you know. But we do know that there is a reckoning. There will be. In fact, the gospel for Gaudete Sunday, John the Baptist says that the Messiah, when he comes, is going to kind of kick up all the wheat, and he's going to winnow the chaff, right? And it will be burned, but the wheat will be gathered into barns. He's making it very clear that there will be a judgment that the Messiah, who is Jesus, that it is going to usher in. And like I told my people today, we want to be the wheat gathered into the barn. We don't want to be the chaff that's burned up.
Right. And I mean, I think something important too is like kind of getting to the theological reason of like why there's no like hope for reconciliation after death in hell is because like what is grace but participation in God's own life, you know, and if you've definitively chosen not that, right? Then there's no grace in hell, right? And it's even grace, like you were saying, like that gets you into the confessional, even if that's where you spent, like you yo-yo back and forth from, you know, mortal sin to the confessional. All right, we're good again. You know, if you do that your whole life, well, there's still grace that you're responding to and cooperating with that's getting you there. But it's after death that's it, right? We're either completely in God's grace or we're not.
Yeah, and in the scriptures, when we talk about the rich man and Lazarus, I often think about that, where Lazarus is kind of at the edge of the table, kind of at the door begging, and the rich man does nothing to minister to Lazarus. Well, at the end of his life, Lazarus goes to be in the bosom of Abraham. That's that kind of Old Testament way of saying to be with God, to be in the presence of beatitude. And the rich man goes to hell. And one of the things the only thing the rich man wants is he wants a little bit of cool water from the tip of the finger of Lazarus. Yeah. And the Lord makes it very clear that that's not possible because there is a chasm here. And that's what we believe about hell, is that in hell we just want a little droplet of grace, a little droplet of divine assistance. But we, throughout our lives, chose not to cooperate with grace. Yeah. And that's what dying in a state of mortal sin is. It's dying willfully choosing to cut myself off from the life of grace. Yeah. I don't want any divine assistance while I'm here in my life, because I want to be the divine one. I want to be God. Yeah. And so I kind of try to manufacture my own grace with all of the stuff that I bring to the table, so like my finances, my ability to do with my money as I want. Yeah. And I might be able to do very good things. I might be able to be a good humanitarian while at the same time not cooperating a lick with what God wants for me. And it's not that God doesn't want to give me graces, but if I continually cut myself off from him in this life, then I'm not going to respond to his grace because I'm the one who's putting the shield up. And so that's what endangers the soul at the time of death and mortal sin, is that I have chosen to be apart from God so much in my life that I can make a Lucifer-like decision when I'm faced with divine judgment, that I can say, I don't want any of what you've got.
Yeah. With that choice, I'm just wondering, as we're talking about this, like I wonder if, people who find themselves eternally in the state of hell, if they're really actually surprised by it. If it's a choice, right, that we make, because I always thought, like, what have, and growing up and thinking about what happens, like, what happens if you get to hell and you're like, well, I thought I was awesome. Like, I thought I was living an awesome life. And the more I think about it now, just a thought, is like, I wonder if people who end up there are really, really actually surprised. Because if it's a choice that we make, then are we really surprised if that's where...
Well, and because we're people that live in a timeline, it's a choice that we continually make. Just as we can continually make choices to allow lives of virtue, when we respond to grace, we go deeper and deeper and deeper into the heart of God. When we do the opposite, we get deeper and deeper and deeper in the opposite direction. We get farther and farther away from the heart of God, so that we really don't... We can't experience the radiation from the heart of the Lord, and we get to the point where, and if you look at like when priests speak about possession, where there is an aversion to holy things. Right. You think about like Scrooge in the Christmas story. He had an aversion to all that was good. Yeah. He had an aversion. He didn't want it. He didn't want it in his presence. And so it wasn't until this very merciful thing, right, the ghosts visiting him, that he begins to understand that life lived apart from what we would call grace is a life that is not worth living. It is a life that is empty. And I think you're right that St. Augustine says it well. Great is already the punishment of sin when the fear of future divine judgment is lost. And that's where we find ourselves now, is that people sometimes, please God and let it not be me, I don't fear future divine judgment. And we're called to have a healthy fear of hell. Right? We have to fear that in the sense of, I do not wish for that to come about for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it too is, like, when you were asking that question, Kathleen, the thing I thought of was like, if in order to be afraid of future judgment, we have to believe that someone else even can judge me. Yeah. And I think we live in a world where like this concept of nominalism, the idea that like, If you're unfamiliar, it's the philosophical school, and slides into heresy that there's no like objective reality. Things are what like me and my subjectivity make of them, and so essentially like I'm the only judge of me if you want to apply it morally. And so we live in that kind of world where like everyone has their truth, everyone has their bliss, everyone is their own kind of arbiter of their own morality, and I think there might be some level of surprise for people who to their core believe that. Now I wonder if people really on the very like basis of their being actually believe those things sometimes, but I think that for the ones that do, it's going to be surprising, that there even is a judge, you know what I mean? But that I never really thought about that before.
If you look at the divine judgment or the Last Judgment of Michelangelo's painting, that big giant painting in the Sistine Chapel, of course, it depicts everything. It depicts heaven and hell and judgment, and then in the very bottom right-hand corner, there is hell, and there is at least one character that is really kind of surprised. He looks a little surprised to be there, and it's because presumably, like at the end of it all, he's like, "Oh no, I have not, and of course this gets into some of the conjecture that we'll talk about on the other side of the break too, is are there people in hell? If God's a God who is merciful, what is that all about? Can we say that there are people in hell? The spoiler alert is we can say that because Jesus himself says that. But to be so kind of self-absorbed that when you do meet the divine judge, to be able to go, oh, well, you're real. Well, I'll be darned. And indeed, I will be darned because, but that's the thing is the more kind of disfigured we get to be by our own choice, by sin, by sinfulness, the more it's possible to say we could be in the presence of the divine judge and still not desire him. That's how our intellect is darkened. That's how our will is weakened so much by the presence of mortal sin. And it's always, that's why a little bit of fire and brimstone every so often is not a bad thing. So we hope that you'll join us on the other side of the break. We're talking about hell on the Catholic Underground. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. We are the Catholic Underground, diving into the depths of hell so you don't have to, or so you don't have to, I'm Father Chris, joined by Kathleen Higgins.
Yep.
Also Olivia Gulino, Jeff Blackwell in space, and Ed Ball, also in space. In space, no one can hear you scream.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's no sound in space, so... No. It's hard to find a confessor in space, too, I think. There's Jeff. Yeah, Jeff is trying to scream, and for those of you listening on the podcast, you don't hear anything. Yeah,
if a tree falls in space, does anyone hear it?
How did it get there? That's my question.
These are the questions. These are the days of our lives.
These are the hard-hitting questions that you come here for.
My goodness. As we've been talking about the four last things, we're at the final of the four last things. It's a good way to kind of ring out the year, I guess. Talking about
Merry Advent.
That's right.
Ho, ho, ho.
Well, it's interesting that as we go into this season of Advent, the very last things that we talk about are the last things, right? When we get these incredibly apocalyptic liturgical bits and bobs. So we are speaking for the Feast of Christ the King. We talk very much about his coming, and we even talk about that chapter in Matthew's gospel where it's very clear that that hell is real, is very real. And so I guess one of the things that we can talk about is, Q&A here about hell. Is it real?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Jesus says in Matthew 25. So Matthew 25, it's the sheep and the goats, right? Where he's talking about if you performed these corporal and spiritual works of mercy, we're kind of paraphrasing here. If you do these things to the least of my brethren, it shows that there is something interiorly that you are manifesting outwardly. And he says, for those of you who have done these things, you have done them unto me. If you've done them to the least of my brethren, come and inherit the place prepared for you from the beginning of the world. From the beginning of the world. And likewise, there are those who did not minister to the needs of the lowliest, therefore did not minister to the Lord in his need. And Jesus says, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. That's Matthew 25.
Yeah.
So Jesus, in his own words, tells us that there is a place that is hell. And he even, in Mark's Gospel, chapter 9, tells us what that's like. He says it is the place where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. It lasts forever.
Ouch.
Yeah, the worm does not die. So there's this kind of constant eating away, if you will.
There's grinding and gnashing of teeth.
And that's another one of those phrases that's used several times.
I always find it interesting in Matthew. This is one of my favorite scriptures. It's like, man, and I'm constantly asking myself, like, Kathleen, are you a sheep or are you a goat? Right? But I always love how the goat people are like, Lord, when did we see you? Like, what? And I and see, this is why I love the show, because you see how my brain works as we air.
It's true.
Because I'm seeing years of thoughts coming together, and that the question I asked earlier, are they surprised?
Because they seem to be.
I think these
in the
goat
scripture.
people, but it's
These goat people.
I've always seen.
Well, what do you mean?
I've always seen them, as like feigning surprise, like what? We never saw you, and they knew all along. I feel like. I feel like Jesus in this, and maybe this is just my own
Kathleen's eisegesis.
My own scriptural reflection. But I feel like Jesus is like, really? Really? Come on. And they're like, no. Okay, yeah, you're right.
It's worth saying that, again, the farther we get away from the life of grace, the more we can't see the face of God in those who are suffering. In fact, that's the Beatitude. Jesus begins his public ministry with the Beatitudes. Blessed are you when? And he says, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God.
Yeah.
So the more pure our heart is, which means the more we've responded to the grace of God, the more we can see his face incarnate, the more we can see his face in the suffering of others, the more we can see the cross being carried as we are carrying them. But the more and more we live lives of sin, the more we turn away and aside from God, the more we just kind of get deeper and deeper into our own stuff, where we see the crosses that we carry as just these, the world is not on my side, so I have to medicate even more, and that sort of thing. And so, I think there's maybe some legitimate surprise because they're unable to see the face of God. And so when they finally do see the face of God, they realize that it is so unlike what I have become that, well, what do you mean? When did I see you naked and not clothe you? When did I see you thirsty and not give you drink? And the Lord will say, well, you didn't see me in these least ones. You lost that likeness and you couldn't make it out. And so now the bed that you've made, you must lie in. The eternity that you have made for yourself while here on earth, you must now experience by your own free choice. So hell is a place. It does exist. And it's important to say that God does not desire any of us to go there.
Right.
But it's a constant choice that we make. Is it full?
Don't know.
We don't know because we don't know how finite the place is.
Yeah. I mean, we can be assured both like what we know scripturally and from revelations such as like Our Lady of Fatima, and different saints like Saint Teresa of Avila, just different saints who have had like visions of hell. That
Saint Teresa of Lisieux too, I believe.
Yeah. So like it is populated.
Yeah, there are souls there.
Yeah, but as far as like numbers and things,
we don't know what capacity looks like.
Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah.
Whereas like we get a kind of symbolic representation of heaven in Revelation, the 144,000. And it's symbolic, it's not an exact number.
Yeah.
We don't really get that for hell. I think also too because like we understand like, yes, God has all knowledge. He knows like who is going to like end up in that state of eternal separation, but he doesn't will it.
Right.
He's not trying to like make it come to be.
No.
And so there's always hope for redemption.
That's right. In fact, because God knows that souls freely can choose hell, he is constantly trying to win us back to himself. I mean, that's the thing we see all throughout the Old Testament. The whole setup for the coming of the Messiah is please come back to me with all your heart. If you make even the slightest turn back towards me, I promise you I will meet you more than halfway.
Yeah.
That's the love of our God. That's the God who made us, is the one who is going to try to stop at nothing to see that we come back to him.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You know what you must do and you know what you must not do.
Yeah.
And we still have the ability to choose God or not.
Well, that's the prodigal son right there. Is like the father doesn't chase down the son, but as soon as the son returns, I always love like the image of the prodigal son coming to the property line, and the father seeing him a ways off, just the sight of him,
right?
He runs to him,
and you get the sense that the father has been constantly vigilant.
Looking,
I always imagine him like looking, and it's like this old man who just
every day
has lost his son.
3:00,
and he looks and he's like, no,
couldn't
right?
be.
And it doesn't say that like, oh, he turned off all the lights. I was like, shh, y'all be quiet. Like maybe he'll go away. No, it says that he ran to him, and that is that returning. The son comes in the mess that he is, and says, and I imagine him just. At the tree line, pacing back and forth, trying to decide, and the father catches one side of him, and takes off. His old man just takes off running, and that's how the Lord is. He's waiting for us just to show up on the property line.
Yep. And that's why the church is here. That's why Jesus intends to found a church, is because, if you will, that's God's property on earth. And anytime that you grace the doors of the church, it's always interesting. And of course, maybe I'm playing a little inside baseball here, but whenever folks that haven't been to church in a long time, or shall I say, my perception is they're kind of, shall we just say, averted to the things of God. Not necessarily that they're possessed and they have this, but walking into a church, they realize that it is a place that is other than they have known for much of their life. I'm always interested to watch how they react and what they do and what they're looking at and how they attempt to interact with the clergy. And so I sometimes very much feel like the father to say, now, how is it? Because they perhaps have not come to themselves in the same way that the prodigal son did, but they're inside the doors of my church, parish. So what is it that I must do to kind of be kind of the voice of the Father, the heart of the Father, who doesn't say, get out of my house, but rather the opposite, saying, well, I'll give you the inheritance, but you're not going to be happy. What you've been doing now, you're not happy, are you? And so every now and then the Holy Spirit will say, you need to just ask him about this, or mention this in the course of the baptism or whatever, And it is always interesting how he works that way, because even certainly through his priests, God does not desire that any soul that walks to the property line, so to speak, be lost. Yeah. He wants you to be inside the church, right? Inside the personification of the heavenly Jerusalem right now, So there's been some chatter about, the dare we hope thing. Is hell, we talked about it, is it full, but is hell actually empty?
I mean, if you're familiar with like Hans Urs von Balthasar, which everyone is, I
That's
know.
right. He was a great philosopher, theologian of his day.
He really was. He doesn't get as much credit as he should. But anyway, not every good philosopher has to be straight up Thomistic. Let's just let that be the lesson, kids. But
And he's not. He's very much in a different vein.
yeah, he's more like
Hegelian, perhaps.
Yeah, it's got some Augustine in there. Anyway, but he wrote a book called "Dare We Hope That All Men Be Saved," and the thrust of his kind of exploration there was like, is that something that we can hope for? And it caused all kind of kerfuffle because there is a heresy called universalism that says it's been condemned by the church, obviously, because
it's also alive and well in the world today.
Oh, absolutely. But it has been officially condemned by the church, just, worth noting. But the adherents of universalism claim to know that all people will be saved. Now, the difference there is that hope is very different from knowledge, right? Hope, sure, is a conviction, but it's a conviction ultimately in the one in whom our hope lies, which is God himself. It is not a hope in specific events coming to be, right? Because that's presumption, right? That's not hope. And so there's all this kind of kerfuffle because people were thinking that that von Balthasar was like somehow claiming to know that all people would be saved, and that's not theologically coherent. Anyway, and then it kind of came back into light recently with Bishop Barron, because
He's just kind of introducing the concept in his Catholicism series.
Right, and also not claiming a universalist position because that's insane. But, I think it brings up a really good conversation about, well, what do we hope for, right? What can we hope for, theologically speaking? And so, we first of all have to understand that, we are made for heaven. We're made for communion with God.
Sure.
And that, hope is that conviction in the one in whom our hope lies, but it's this longing for something that's something good, right?
Yes.
We don't hope for bad things.
Right. Yeah.
So we hope for good things, and in this
and
case,
it's fulfillment.
it is fulfillment. In this case, it's our salvation, right? And not just mine, and not just yours and yours, but the salvation of all people.
Right.
That's right. We say that in the Eucharistic prayer, right? Is that through these rites, through this offering of the body and blood of Jesus, we wish for the salvation of the world. We hope that it brings about the salvation of the world.
Yeah.
Again, even in the rites of the church, in offering Jesus Christ, the sacrifice that he himself provides for his church, we are hoping that it brings about the conviction in the hearts of all men that they would be saved.
Yeah. And I think von Balthasar is really hanging his hat on the mercy of God. We talk a lot about the kind of duality between, not dualism, but the duality between God's mercy and his judgment, right? Or mercy and his justice. And I think von Balthasar is thinking through to its logical conclusions. All right, what would the mercy of God look like? Right?
Absolute mercy.
Yeah.
Absolute mercy. What would that look like? And is that something that we can hope for? Which is why he titles it Dare We Hope, right? That all men be saved. And so he comes to the conclusion that hell is what he calls a real possibility. So he's not, maybe as convicted as he should be in that sense of the reality of hell, because there's so much, scriptural evidence for it, theological evidence anyway. But he says, however, there's good reason to hope that in the end all men may be saved. And to even clarify his position, he says, we stand completely and utterly under judgment and have no right, nor is it possible for us to peer in advance at the judge's cards. How can anyone equate hoping with knowing? I hope that my friend will recover from his serious illness. Do I therefore know this? Right? So he's aware that we can hope for it, but that's not the same thing as expecting it. It's not the same thing as knowing it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where we have to leave the question unanswered, right? I love that he uses that analogy of we can't peer in advance at the judge's cards.
Right.
Yeah.
We have to wait until they're played in a sense.
Right. But the only thing that we can do is concern ourselves with our salvation, right? Like St. Paul says, to work out your salvation in fear and trembling. And we do that not because we fear God's, being maleficent to us, but because we actually have a healthy fear that we might choose to be apart from Him for the rest of eternity, And to work out your salvation in fear and trembling means I don't want to be at that stage. I don't want to have my will darkened, or my will weakened and my intellect darkened. And so therefore I wish to stay in the state of grace as much as possible. And when I do fall, I do wish to go back through the ordinary means by which God reconciles me to himself, which is in the sacraments of the church, in a sense of being in a state of venial sin, acts of charity, receiving the Eucharist, certainly receiving reconciliation. Those are ways in which that foe is routed. And then, of course, if I'm in a state of mortal sin where I've committed a serious sin, then sacramental reconciliation is the normative way by which that is expunged, that is wiped away, and I'm back on the road to sainthood again. And again, this is because of God's mercy that he provides the sacramental life of the church. It's because of God's mercy that he even provides a priesthood that can give us an audible expression, an audible prayer, and an audible statement of reality that because you have come here, your sins are forgiven through the power of the Holy Spirit present in the church today. I went to confession last week. I was overdue, and I can't tell you, whenever I heard the prayer of absolution prayed over me, I went, Lord, thank you. Thank you for bringing me back. And, that type of an experience is oftentimes what will help a person to realize, no, this is real. And I do have to make amends. I do have to change my life. John the Baptist began a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins. Jesus completes it by imbuing it with the power of the Holy Spirit, which has the power to save.
And I think something, too, to kind of point out as a corollary to that is like the grace that we can, kind of advocate for ourselves, win for ourselves. We can also win for other people.
Correct.
Not completely, but I know a lot of times some people are like, I'm really worried that so-and-so in my life has cut themselves off from God, and I'm worried about their soul, and that's a legitimate fear.
It is.
But I think we have to remember the reality of prayer, and like that prayer is not just like, it makes me feel better,
prayer is not just simply a salve.
It's efficacious. And it was Fulton Sheen, he was talking about vocations when he said this, but I think it's apt across the board. He said that our prayers are like imagine like the graces of the world, the graces that we need kind of hanging like from ribbons, right, in heaven. And our prayers are like the swords that cut them, right, and drop them down. And I loved that image. And so like the people in our lives that need prayer, that need God, but aren't kind of doing that advocacy for themselves, we can do to a certain extent, and that is a reality that you can win grace for other people.
And it is efficacious in that it can allow for their hearts to be softened. It can allow for their will to be brightened a bit by our kind of carrying that cross with them and for them. St. Monica, of course, is the gold standard of praying for Augustine, her son. And your prayer, it's important to note this, your prayers are efficacious. They do go to the heart of God, and they do actively intercede for others. That is something that the church has always believed, even before the coming of the Messiah. In the Old Testament, there is a notion of efficacious, of active, real prayer that has effects. And so don't be afraid to pray. And sometimes the only prayer that we can say is, Lord, help. Lord, help my friend. Lord, help my son. Help my daughter. Help my husband. Help my wife. And the Lord hears those prayers, and then he begins to figure out the ways in which his grace have to flow so that person can hopefully be snatched away from eternal fire. Something that we don't want to snatch you away from, though, is that part of the show that we like to call
the CU Pick of the Week.
For our first CU Pick of the Week, Olivia.
Yay, Olivia.
This is how they pity me. Okay, my pick of the week is something called 100 Days of Dante. So I know that we've mentioned, because of the topics in the past couple of weeks, we've mentioned Dante a lot. And what we're referring to, because I don't think we said it today, is Dante's Divine Comedy, which is 3 parts of the Inferno, which is hell, purgatory, and then Paradiso, about heaven. It's about like his kind of journey through all those places. Anyway, it's incredible. I read it when I was in college, and it honestly like kind of changed my life, not to be dramatic, but like it really changed my life in a lot of different ways. And if you haven't ever read it, don't think that you're too old or like it's, I'm not in college anymore and I don't have anyone to explain it to me, because that's kind of the point behind this project. It's a bunch of different schools, professors who have gotten together to read through Dante in 100 days.
Cool.
And it's very like bite-sized, so like if you miss stuff, like it's okay.
That's kind of how I need Dante sometimes, because the poetry can get thick.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's written in like medieval Italian and then translated into English. Like, excuse me. But what I love is that it's all these people who have really broken it down for like a popular audience, but in a way that doesn't lose any of its meaning. And even if you're like, oh, well, I've already missed, because it started a while ago. It started back in September. If you're like, oh, well, I've already missed whatever, well, they're still only like halfway through. They're in Purgatorio. So like, it's always a good place to jump in and like do what you can. They're about to get to heaven, So it's like
Purgatory's a great place to jump in. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Purgatory. Jump in on Purgatory. But yeah, it's culturally so significant. Love Dante, so highly recommend that. And the recordings and stuff are really good.
Awesome.
Kathleen, top that.
No, I'm kidding. Of course, watch her do it.
I went on my honeymoon to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and one of the things that I surprised my husband with, there was so much for our wedding that he was just like, whatever you want, babe, whatever you want, that I knew I needed to surprise him with something. So we went.
You
to
needed a
this place.
showstopper.
Yeah. So I called ahead, made an appointment at this place called Iron Mountain Metalcraft in Pigeon Forge.
Yeah, you did.
It was so fun. You go into like this open air barn and you make your own knife. Can we talk about this? So this, if you're watching on air, this is the one that I made.
Shing.
And I made it out of a horseshoe.
That's so cool.
This is so awesome. So I told Adam, I was like, my husband, I was like, look, you can hold it like this or like this. And he was like, there's something
upside down or right side up, and they
very
both
wrong
look
with you.
menacing.
Yeah, and he made one out of a little pony shoe.
I love how yours is the bigger one.
Yeah, but he was. I was like, I feel bad, and it was just a really cool experience. Something that was, off the beaten path. It was, we both could do it. I'm pretty sure a hot ember fell off my knife into my boot. It was quite painful, but it was so.
No pain, no knife.
So much fun, and so now I have this cool knife, and she was like, you can either put it on your belt like this up and down, or you can wear it like a cowboy. What? And do it like this, like that, so that it sits like straight with your belt. I was like, I'm gonna wear it like a cowboy because I got myself a pony knife. It's exciting. So Iron Mountain Metalcraft in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee is my pick of
Sounds
the
like
week.
a blacksmith shop.
It was so much more.
Oh, really? Wow.
They had sharp knives and hot things. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad that you made it back with all of your digits intact,
Yes.
actually,
far. This has been safely tucked away. I'm not allowed to touch it most times.
Yeah, do you have to pack that in your luggage? I was wondering about the TSA.
Yes, please don't.
No, we
They
drove.
Oh,
so.
I see. Okay.
They were their own TSA.
Yep.
There you go.
Jeff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my turn. And thank you for letting me have a turn. Pour House, Pourhaus.
Oh, so
Pour House.
okay.
It's a boxed wine. And I have tried to find more info about it. Now, it's available everywhere, but it's a vineyard? I don't know. But it's they have a red
know.
blend and sangria and cabs and kind of all kinds of selections. But it's 3 liters for $15. It's like, and it's very, very tasty, too. So that's my pick of the week.
A good boxed wine is hard to find.
Well, now you
and
discover
sometimes
it.
it's hard to drink. So
yeah, you're right. You were absolutely right about that. Yeah.
Well, very cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that out. Is it available at most retailers?
Yeah, particularly like there's a big a big box store.
Okay, yeah.
Of like alcohol.
Oh yeah, we do.
wines
We do have a big box
liqueurs
alcohol
and
store.
stuff
We're
like that,
Louisiana,
I've
folks.
been there. I like
So,
it.
but you can
It's
find it
wonderful.
online.
I have
No
a
problem.
membership. No, dude.
My pick of the week, of course, speaks to the artist heart in me. It is Marvel by Design. So if you can imagine the graphic design of Marvel Comics from their inception
Yeah.
as timely comics.
Really?
Way back in the day, in the Silver Age, Bronze Age of comics.
My goodness.
All the way to today, Marvel has kind of developed its own kind of graphical style that is pretty normative today. Things that we think about when we think about comic books and how they come together. Marvel was responsible for a great deal of that. What do you call that? Juggernauting of which is actually an X-Men. I understand that.
I got you.
But kind of spearheading the look. So Marvel by Design is the book. It's a nice coffee table sized book.
Oh my! That is
And
a
I
big
mean,
book.
all manner of illustrations.
Yes.
And it breaks down everything. So like by comic page, by types of fonts, by logos of the different characters. Really, really well done. Very, very well done. And so for the graphic designer in your life, maybe you can get it in time for Christmas. I don't know. Marvel by Design is my pick of the week. Yeah.
At fine bookstores everywhere.
At fine bookstores everywhere. And as always, as we come to the end of a calendar year, whenever this program is being recorded, you can always let us know what your picks of the week are. You can go to backchat@catholicunderground.com. That's an email address, and it emails all of us all at the same time. And so you can let us know what your picks of the week are, and perhaps, if you'd like, you can leave us maybe your first name and initial, and we can say it was,
We'll talk about you.
Yeah, it was Joe C's pick of the week. So we like that. We like that kind of interaction as well. And
Also, speaking of Backchat, tell us what you like. Tell us what you want to hear.
some topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a couple of
that's
backchats
good.
that we'll probably read in the new year.
Cool.
And some folks have been quite loquacious, and that's good. I like that for sure. So as always, we're always grateful for you. And we're always very grateful for your interaction. I know the chat room is almost always a buzz with folks. In fact, we even have some top fans in the chat room by now, which is very nice, And of course, we do hope that the new year will bring good things for our apostolate, for Catholic Underground. And so one of the things that I used to do way back when is a State of the Podcast. And so we might do that before the end of the year is out. And I know Father Ryan Humphries and I are already talking about some things to maybe look forward to in the new year. With some different podcasting things. So as always, as I say, I thank you for being our viewer, being our listener, being our prayer warrior, being our benefactor. And Jeff always can tell you the way to become a benefactor.
Yeah, just go to CatholicUnderground.com/donate and become an undergrounder. You can also help us out by letting others know about, the CU. And remember to like us and to heart us and to star us on your platform of choice. And if your podcasting service allows you to do so, leave a comment, a positive comment, and pass it on to others and let them know about the CU.
That's right. And it's worth noting, we know that we have merch that's sitting in our merch cabinet.
Yep.
And I haven't yet been able to get the website up and running. So maybe that's what I will do over my Christmas vacation.
Yay.
Rest.
That's right. I will rest as well. Our panelists have been Kathleen Higgins at CatHiggins626 on Instagram. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, sorry. I had to slow down my roll. Olivia Gulino is the .real.omg on Instagram and Twitter. Jeff Blackwell is our technical director at Jeff Blackwell us on Twitter and Instagram. Not Albert. I need to change this on the rundown. Ed doesn't have any social media, but he does run the video. Jim Hayes is our research assistant with his crew in the lab. Happy Advent, Jim, and the crew in the lab. And you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker at Digital Catholic on Twitter and the Instagrams. You've been listening to the Catholic Underground, cutting through the noise, we hope, so that you don't have to, and find that still small voice for Catholic Underground. And we'll see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.